Shalom, this is Onia. We are once again doing the study of the book of Enoch. We're continuing from last week. And however, to understand the calendar properly, we have to kind of backtrack a little bit. We read the chapters last week of 72 through 75, and I want to go through those chapters again with, we have Laureen with us, and I'm going to go through the information with her so she can understand what it's talking about. So I'm going to open those files here. So starting from chapter 72, I'm going to screen share. So you should be able to see my screen in just a second. Okay. So I drew diagrams last week. And so this is what you're going to be paying attention to. You're going to be paying attention to, let's see here, the middle section right here. This is halfway between the equator and the North Pole, and this is halfway between the equator and the South Pole. You really want to just focus on this one right here. Whoops, let me see. Yeah, so north here, south, east, and west. So before I read from Enoch to you what it's saying. Let's see. Before I read that, I'm going to explain to you the diagrams. Okay. So you see these. You see 6 different sections here and 6 on the other side. These are called portals. Enoch is describing portals, or basically it's just sections of the horizon. So picture yourself standing right here. Let me hold on. Wait, you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So picture yourself right here, standing right here, with your. This is where your head is, the top of your head. You're looking straight north. That's like this. You look straight east. That's this way. Straight west, and straight south. Okay. So when you're looking to your east, you're going to see on the east. We divide the entire horizon into 4 sections: east, west, north, and south. So on the east section, the eastern quarter, we divide it into 6 different sections. Those are called portals. They're just areas of the horizon. And what Enoch tells us is that each area of the horizon is equivalent to 1 month of 30 days. So you see there's 6 months of 30 days, or 6 portals, each of 30 days. And then what happens is you see these little, you see these circles. Let's see, there's a circle right here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a circle here, and there's also a circle underneath it. And then there's a circle right here. Those are the 4 season days. They divide the seasons. And so those are outside the months of the year. So there are the first 6, there's the 6 months in each of these portals, and then it goes back through all those portals again a second time. So that's 12 months of 30 days each for the portals. So you start, like, so for example, I'm gonna, let me see. Oh, and also Enoch tells you the different parts of light. Like, so you see right here, different parts of light. There's, you know how we divide it into 24 hours? Well, Enoch divides it into 18 parts. And so just like in spring for us, the day is 12 hours and night is 12 hours, so also the day, according to Enoch, and the spring is 9 parts daytime and 9 parts night. And then as you get through the first month, it's 10 parts daytime and 8 parts night, and it keeps going like that. So now that I've said that, I'm going to be reading now from chapter 72. So let's see here. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to be reading from this translation. You can follow along with your own version of Enoch if you like, and it says we have here Magi WW. If you can't talk on your mic, or if you don't want to, you can always message right here. You'll see the messages, and you can type messages right here. Right here. And we also have that link of Enoch, which I'll repost for you if you don't have a copy of it. So you can follow along with Enoch right there if you desire, or you can just listen and follow along with the screen shared version that I have right here. Now, as I said, we did this last week, but I wanted to go through it again because there were certain things about it that I wanted to cover better. That there was a couple things we left out. Let me see here. Where's Enoch? Alright, here's Enoch. Let me get to the chapter now. Alright, right about there. So as I'm reading, I'm going to be pointing out on the diagram. Okay, and this has footnotes. This is a special version with footnotes. Other versions don't usually show the footnotes, so that's a negative feature that unfortunately a lot of the versions don't show what the many variants are. Last week we went through a lot of those variants together. We're not going to go through all those variants this week, but so if you want, you can catch up from last week's teaching to see those variants. But so now let me get started here, and I'll be stopping along the way when I get to a passage which I want to clarify what it's saying, then I'll stop and explain. So I'll begin now with chapter 72. The book of the courses of the luminaries of the heaven, the relations of each according to their classes, their dominion, and their seasons according to their names and places of origin, and according to their months, which Uriel, the holy angel who was with me, who is their guide, showed me. Uriel is one of the 7 archangels. You know, there's Michael, Gabriel, Raphael. Uriel is one of them. Although in the Dead Sea Scrolls, instead of Uriel, it's spelled Sariel, and that's probably his original name, Sariel. Now it says, and he showed me all their laws exactly as they are, and how it is with regard to all the years of the world and unto eternity, till the new creation is accomplished, which dureth till eternity. So right there, this is something interesting, because a lot of people try to tell us that the calendar was originally 364 or originally 360, and then they say, well, it changed and it's not that anymore. Now it's 365. They say it changed to 365, but Enoch promised us. He said right here, he's told us how the laws of the calendar work with all the years of the world and unto eternity till the new creation is accomplished. So we know that their teaching that they're saying is false. The calendar has not changed. The laws of the calendar are still for today, and they're still the same as it always was. Now he continues and says, and this is the first law of the luminaries. The luminary, the sun, has its rising in the eastern portals of the heaven, and its setting in the western portals of the heaven. So, you know, basically he's just saying the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And as I showed here, there's the 6 portals of the east that the sun rises through at certain times of the year, and there's the 6 portals in the west that the sun sets through. It corresponds at the same time, the same days, I mean. Now, It says, and I saw 6 portals in which the sun rises. That's what I just showed earlier, the 6 portals of the east. It says, and 6 portals in which the sun sets. And he tells us here, and the moon rises and sets in these portals. So the moon goes in these same portals. And what else does? The leaders of the stars and those whom they lead. So the stars also go through these same places the sun goes through. So it says 6 in the east and 6 in the west. 6 portals in the east, 6 portals in the west. And all following each other in accurately corresponding order. Also many windows to the right and left of these portals. So there's many windows in each of these portals, between the portals. So it actually seems to me, if I understand correctly, when he talks about it's possible when he says the 4th portal, I have it here as a whole section of red as being the portal, but maybe instead all he's saying is there's like a little thing right here where the entrance into the portal is. But in either case, it's essentially the same thing. Now, let me see. And first there goes forth the great luminary named the sun, and his circumference is like the circumference of the heaven. And he is quite filled with illuminating and heating fire. The chariot on which he ascends, the wind drives. The Old Testament says something very similar here. Then it says, and the sun goes down from the heaven and returns through the north in order to reach the east, and is so guided that he comes to the appropriate portal and shines in the face of the heaven. Excuse me for a second. So what he means when he it says he returns through the north. So watch, so he rises right here, goes and sets right here, and then he returns through the north on the other side. He's returning through the north right here, and then he goes all the way back around and then comes back. So that's how he returns through the north. Sorry about, I might be getting down with something, a little bit of a cold possibly. Then it says, in this way he rises in the 1st month in the great portal, which is the 4th, those 6 portals in the east. And in that 4th portal from which the sun rises in the 1st month are 12 window openings. Hold on. 12 window openings from which proceed a flame when they are opened in their season. So there's 12 windows in each of these portals that the sun goes through. Basically, every 3.5 days it enters a new window. I think it's 3.5, yeah, because I did the math before. Now, when the sun rises in the heaven, he comes forth through that 4th portal 30 mornings in succession, and sets accurately in the 4th portal in the west of the heaven. And during this period, the day becomes daily longer, and the night nightly shorter to the 30th morning. On that day, the day is longer than the night by a 9th part, and the day amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that 4th portal and sets in the 4th, and returns in the 5th portal of the east 30 mornings, and rises from it and sets in the 5th portal. So I'll stop there for a second. See, so he starts off rising, like at the beginning of spring, he's right here, the sun. He rises, and then he sets in the west. And he keeps doing that for 30 days, and it gets more and more closer to this 5th portal right here. After 30 days, or on the 30th day, the amount of light has gradually increased in the daytime, and the amount of night has gradually decreased. So by the time you get to the end of the month, it is now 10 parts light and 8 parts night. Then the next day, it becomes the 5th portal, enters the 5th portal, and that is the 2nd month of your year. So then it goes through 30 days, once again, going through all the way. And so that's what we read next. It says, and on that day, the day is longer than the night by a ninth part, and the day amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun, oh yeah, I read that already. My apologies. Verse 12. And then the day becomes longer by 2 parts, and amounts to 11 parts, and the night becomes shorter, and amounts to 7 parts. And it returns to the east, and enters into the 6th portal, and rises and sets in the 6th portal 1:30 mornings on account of its sign. On that day, the day becomes longer than the night, and the day becomes double the night, and the day becomes 12 parts, and the night is shortened and becomes 6 parts. So I'll stop there for a second. So basically what he just told us is, just like in the first month, the same thing happens in the second month. It goes for 30 days, and then enters the 6th portal. When it enters the 6th portal, that's becoming the 3rd month. It's now the 3rd month. The beginning of the 3rd month is 11 parts daytime and 7 parts night. And then for 30 more days it keeps going in the 3rd month until it reaches the end of the 3rd month. Then it becomes the day after the 30th day of the 3rd month. It is the summer solstice. And on that summer solstice, it's the longest day of the year. It is 12 parts daytime and 6 parts night. And then the very next day begins the 4th month, and it now goes back through the 6th portal. It doesn't keep going more because it's the longest day. Now it goes back. So we see it going back right here, where he says, and the sun mounts up to make the day shorter and the night longer, and the sun returns to the east and enters into the 6th portal and rises from it and sets 30 mornings. And when 30 mornings are accomplished, the day decreases by exactly 1 part and becomes 11 parts, and the night 7. And the sun goes forth from the 6th portal in the west and goes to the east and rises in the 5th portal for 30 mornings and sets in the west again in the 5th western portal. On that day the day decreases by 2 parts and amounts to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun goes forth from that 6th portal in the west and goes to the east and rises in the 5th portal for 30 mornings. Did I just read this part?
I think.
Let me see. Let me start right here. And the sun goes forth from that 5th portal and sets in the 5th portal of the west and rises in the 4th portal for 1:30 mornings on account of its sign and sets in the west. On that day the day is equalized with the night and becomes of equal length, and the night amounts to 9 parts and the day to 9 parts. So we stop there for a second. Basically what he just told us is the 4th month is 30 days as well, then the 5th month is 30 days as well, and that's in the 5th portal, and then the 6th month is 30 days, and that's in the 4th portal. And in each time it's going back now, backtracking from 12 parts 6, now we go back to 11 parts 7 when we begin the 5th month, and then when we begin the 6th month, it's now 10 parts daytime, 8 parts night, and then we go all the way back until the first day of fall. The 30th day of the 6th month is when it starts to go to 9 parts, 9 parts, but when it has to go to the next day, and the next day after, that's the equal day. That's the fall equinox. We started with the spring equinox, and now we return to, and now it's the fall equinox. Then the same thing happens. It's going to be the same relationship as we saw up here, but it's in the reverse. Now it's going, instead of the daytime increasing, now it's the night increasing and the daytime is decreasing. And it goes to the exact opposite relationships. So we saw here 10:8, now it's going to be 8:10. 11:7 was here, now it's 7:11 down here, and 12:6 up here, 6:12 down here. So I'm not going to read the rest of that because it's the same thing. It just goes in the opposite direction. It's the same laws. And we did cover that last week. So let's see here. Then I'll go to the very end of the chapter. It says, so this is the this is going to be the 12th month. Okay, so on that day the sun rises from that portal and sets in the west and returns to the east and rises in the third portal for 1:30 mornings and sets in the west of the heaven. On that day the night decreases and amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts. And the night is equal to the day, and the year is exactly as to its days, 364. And the length of the day and of the night, and the shortness of the day and of the night arise. Through the course of the sun these distinctions are made. So it comes that its course becomes daily longer and its course nightly shorter. And this is the law and the course of the sun, and his return as often as he returns, 60 times and rises. What does he mean 60 times? Because look at this. When it was spring, it was 30, we began the year, it was 30 days in the fourth portal. Then it was 30 days in the fifth portal, then 30 days in the sixth portal. But wait, now it's summer and it's going back. So it's 30 days again, a second time. So that's 60 days. And then another 30 days. So that's 60 days in the fifth. Then another 30 days. That's 60 days in the fourth altogether for that year. So that's why it says 60 times. And then it says, and that which rises is the great luminary, and is so named according to its appearance, according as the Lord commanded. As he rises, so he sets and decreases not, and rests not, but runs day and night, and his light is sevenfold brighter than that of the moon. But as regards size, they are both equal. He's saying the size of the sun and moon look the same in the sky. So that is the basic. He basically just told us how the solar year works. So it is 364 days, and not 365, not 360. Let me just see if someone's trying to say. Okay, no. I was checking to see if anyone was trying to come in or not, but no one is. So he basically tells us, this is a very specific calendar of 364 days, and a lot of other documents. It's not just Enoch, but there's many other books which support this calendar. There is the Book of Jubilees. There is the Sabbath songs of David and the daily songs of David. David actually wrote other songs, and some of them were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so there's a lot of witnesses supporting this calendar of Enoch. And there's a calendar in Scripture of 360 days. Why is there a calendar in Scripture sometimes of 360, whereas Enoch says 364? Well, you're going to see in a little while that Enoch actually tells us that those 4 extra days, the season dividing days, are actually outside of the months of the year, and they're not to be counted as part of the months. So there's 360 days in the months of the year. Those 4 days are not part of any of the months of the year, so they're excluded from that count. So there's 360 days of the months of the year. That's why sometimes Scripture seems to say there's only 360, because those are the only days of the months. Now, I'm just going to zoom out for a second, and you're going to see here, why do I have different columns? I went through this in last week's video, so I'm not going to go through all this again, but I'm just going to share with you the basic idea here is where Enoch saw the rules was only one place on Earth. If you go to the equator and then you're saying, I'm going to travel all the way to the North Pole, but you decide not to go all the way and you only go halfway. That's where Enoch was. That's where he was seeing these things. The laws that Enoch saw don't apply in the exact literal way in every other place in the world. Rather, he gives us ratios here. This is a ratio. The standard. He gives us the center, the halfway mark, the center. So look at this. This is the equator. Remember, at the equator, it's equal daytime and equal night all year round. So the 6 portals are all in the same place, all year round. So you can see that the laws are not the same literal way, but they are rational. They are of a ratio and proportional. So you see these 6 portals of the east here and 6 portals of the west here. Well, they become here. This is a quarter of the way between the equator and the North Pole. They become smaller instead of, and the days of the parts of light differ. So you've got right here, it starts off at 9:9 all the time, but instead of 10 to 8, it becomes 9.5 to 8.5, and then 10 to 8, and then 10.5 to 7.5 as the longest day of the year. Also, the sun doesn't go as far. It only goes up here instead of way up here. So on the longest day of the year for summer, it's only right here instead of right here. So you can see that it's a different journey, different literal numbers, but it's following the same ratio. It's a relationship, a pattern. So I don't see this as a contradiction. Enoch it would be very improbable for Enoch to tell us how the laws work for every place on Earth. Rather, it makes more sense that he gave us the center as our foundation, as our way to look back to, and make all the other measurements look back to and correspond to the center place. So right here, this is the opposite direction. It's 3/4 of the way between the equator and the North Pole. And instead of 1 part's daytime change, it's now 1.5. So instead of from 9 to 10, so instead of 10 to 8, it's now 10.5 to 7.5, and then it goes to 12 to 6, and the longest day of the year is 13.5 to 4.5. That's the summer right here, and it sets, and it's the summer. The sun is rising right here, way up here. So, and then in winter, way down here. So you see, it changes, but it follows that pattern and relationship. And then for the North Pole and South Pole, you see right here. Now what happens is, now the 4th portal is not from here to here. Now the 4th portal is circular and goes all the way around. The 5th portal, circular. 6th portal, and then the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st portal, it backtracks at the same area. Now, as we know, at the North Pole, during the 6 months between spring and fall, it's always daytime. 24 hours of daytime, never a night, no sunset. Then, when fall begins, the sun sets, and it's then 6 months straight of darkness, of night, and no sunrise. The sun never rises for 6 months straight. This is at the North Pole. The same thing happens at the South Pole, except it's in when we're experiencing in the northern hemisphere spring and summer, the southern hemisphere is experiencing fall and winter. It's the opposite direction. But otherwise, it's the same things that happen. So I also showed right here. I showed the southern, like, here's where Enoch was. 1 second. Here's where Enoch was right here. He was at this place. If he was to be at that exact place, but in the southern hemisphere instead, this is what we would see. We would see these measurements. So you see, it looks, the colors are the same, and the numbers are the same, but the directions are different. South is now here at the top instead of north. North's down here. Instead of east, now it's west here, and east is here. Likewise, for the quarterway, it's the same color correspondence, but in the numbers, but the directions are different. They're reversed again: south, north, west, east. And the equator is the same, just north down there, south. You know, same thing right there. And you've got this same thing right here. Same relationships, just in the opposite direction. And we have it, as I said, for here. And then I also showed, so people could see the parts of daytime. It's the same information, just represented differently. So it's all the same information. It just shows you how much parts of daytime and night for each day. And then at the very bottom, I just said, so the sun is 7 times brighter than the moon, but is in appearance they look the same size. So that's that document. Let me see here. Hold on. Let me see if. Oh, that my bad. Okay. So I'll exit out of this one now, and let's see here. So we're going to go now to right here, Enoch chapters 73 and 74, part 1. Let's see. There were copies of the Book of Enoch found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which we went through that last week. And this is based on what Enoch shows us in those fragments. He gives us 2 different months, 29-day month and a 30-day month. He actually gives more detail than what I just shared here, but unfortunately I was not able to finish all the diagrams for the moon, so only this can suffice for now. But basically, you see, it shows the different parts. Like right here, this is the crescent, and then in each day it starts to wax and get larger, and then by the 7th day of each month of the lunar month, it is the half moon. It's a half moon. Then it keeps going, the same relationship, until it reaches full moon right here on the 14th day. It always is full moon on the 14th. In the 29th month, there's only 1 day that's the full moon. But in the 30th month, there's 2 days that are the full moon. Then in each month, 29 and 30-day month of lunar, it goes back through for 7 days until it reaches the half moon again, and then another 7 days. And on the 14th day after, it's the new moon. So that's the 28th day right there, and this is the 29th in the 30-day month. And then so there's always 2 days of the new moon in a month, in a lunar month. So that's what we see right here. That's what Enoch. We went through that last week. We looked at everything he said. So you can see right here, the chapter 73. So Enoch gives us the laws of how the sun's year works, and he also gives the laws of how the moon's year works, which is very important. But now that leads us to ask, well, which year do we use, the sun or the moon? The Jews, most of the Jews use the moon as the main calendar. But according to the Dead Sea Scrolls and many of these other writings, like Enoch, Jubilees, and many other writings, like especially the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says that the sun calendar is to be used as the primary calendar, and the moon is only secondary. It's to help reinforce and synchronize the years together. But so as we read through this last time, as I mentioned, we found a much longer version of this in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Sometimes this happens where in our copies of Scripture, it's a abbreviated account. The scribes shortened it, condensed the material, because it was hard for people to understand. Sometimes that was the reason, but there's many reasons why the scribes altered the Scriptures. It didn't happen just with Enoch, but it happened with many other books like the Law of Moses, the Book of Psalms. Many other writings of the Old Testament have been altered in the copies by the scribes for various purposes, usually to make it easier for people to understand, or more relevant, or to be less redundant. You know, all these different in the scribe's mind. I don't agree with them doing that, but unfortunately that was their reasoning that they did. And chapter 74 also gives the laws of the moon. Now, he also tells us, Enoch tells us, let me see here, right here, he says, then I saw their position, how the moons rose and the sun set in those days. And if 5 years are added together, the sun has an overplus of 30 days, and all the days which accrue to it for one of those 5 years, when they are full, amount to 364 days. And the overplus of the sun and the stars amounts to 6 days. In 5 years, 6 days every year come to 30 days. and the moon falls behind the sun and the stars to the number of 30 days. So I'll stop there for a second. The lunar year is 354 days. The solar year is 364. So it should fall away 10 days every year, but instead Enoch's saying in 5 years it falls 6 days every year to 30 days. Now why is he saying that? The reason he's saying that is because, remember I said earlier that there's two ways of counting the days of the year. There's the 364 and there's the 360 days of the months of the year. So Enoch is simply saying the months for the months of the year, for 5 years, the moon calendar, the moon year, loses 6 days every year. If you take the 364, which we'll see in a little bit, instead of 360, now instead of 6 days every year, it becomes 10 days every year. So then he says, look right here, and the sun and the stars bring in all the years exactly, so that they do not advance or delay their position by a single day unto eternity, but complete the years with perfect justice in 364 days. I'll stop there. And you saw that these were bolded, right? You see the bold? What that means is that the guy who translated this, he actually changed what the text says because he didn't think it made sense. He tried to fix it and correct it to make it say what he thought it should say. So it does not actually say "and the sun." It actually says "and the moon." Some manuscripts say the sun, moon, and stars. Some say the moon and the stars. But most manuscripts just say "and the moon brings in all the years." And then also right here, it says complete. The actual text says convert. Ethiopian manuscript says convert, not complete. He changed that too. He changed it to complete. I prefer to follow what the text actually says. So I go with convert and not complete. And how I know this is because he gives the footnotes and he explains that. And I have other translations where they give the footnotes too. And he tells us why he changes things and how he changed it. So when you look at all other English translations not derived from this version, because a lot of English translations out there online are simply copying and pasting R.H. Charles' version right here that I'm reading from. The problem is when they're copying and pasting it, they're not including the footnotes. So they're including all of R.H. Charles' mistakes without including his reasons for why he made those mistakes. He made those mistakes accidentally. But now people don't have the variance in their version of Enoch, and they're being led astray. So we really want to be aware of what the text actually says and not what translators falsely render it. And I've looked at least 6 different translations of the Book of Enoch by official scholars of the Ethiopian language. They know the language very well. They are experts at it, and they've translated it. And they always translate it as moon, not sun and stars. So Enoch, clearly in the Ethiopic text, is saying, and the moon brings in all the years exactly, so that they do not advance or delay their position by a single day unto eternity, but convert the years with perfect justice in 364 days. And then he goes on and says, in 3 years there are 1,092 days, and in 5 years 1,820 days, so that in 8 years there are 2,912 days. And he keeps going. He says, for the moon alone, the days amount in 3 years to 1,062 days, and in 5 years she falls 50 days behind. He says, for the moon, the days in 8 years amount to 2,832 days. For in 8 years she falls behind to the amount of 80 days. And the year is accurately completed in conformity with their world stations and the stations of the sun, which rise from the portals through which it rises and sets 30 days. So we look at here and we see, first, Enoch gives a little explanation here. He says, for some reason, look at this. He says, verse 9, and if 5 years are added together. He's talking about the moon right now. And then he says again, 5 years. And then verse 11, 5 years. Why is he mentioning 5 years three different times in one little place? And then in the very next place after, he then says, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 8 years. He clearly wants us to use these cycles for synchronization. The fact that he emphasizes the 5-year mark, and what does he say? He says the moon brings in all the days of the year. What he's saying sounds like a contradiction at first, because he says 364 days, but the sun is 364 days, the moon is 354. So is that a contradiction? I believe it's not, and actually what he's trying to tell us is that we are to use the moon to intercalate the year. The problem is every year there's extra parts of the day left over, and over time the seasons get off track. So you need to use the sun and the moon together, synchronize them, to determine when we are to add the extra time to make it stay with the seasons. So that's what Enoch is clearly saying, that every 5 years you are to use the moon to make sure that the year remains 364 days. So he's giving us a hint here at how to keep the calendar in their proper calculation. Now, as I said, in the Dead Sea Scrolls there was a longer version found. This chapter was not found, this section anyway, but I believe in the original he explained this much better and much more detailed of how the system works of intercalation. Now, let me see here for a second. Let's see, no questions so far. If you have any questions, you can always you can type the questions in the message box. Now, I'm gonna open, let me see here, intercalation of solar and lunar years. So I did this the other day. Now, Enoch says the solar year is 364 days, and he says the lunar year is 354 days. However, science proves that in addition to 364 days, there is extra parts of daytime in every year, and the same thing for the moon. Scientists call it 2422. That's how many days in a year they say, but that's incorrect. You see, here's how Enoch numbered it. It was 364 days plus 2 partial days. So that extra 1 day and a quarter is divided in half, and on each side is counted, but it's not a full day, so it can't be counted as a full day. So you have to strike those off, just like in the Gregorian calendar. In the Gregorian calendar, you have 365 days and a quarter, but you can't have a quarter of a day, so you have to cut off a quarter. But every 4 years, now you have those 4 quarters, that equals a day, so you add the day back in. That's how the Gregorian calendar does it. But we don't follow the Gregorian calendar. A lot of people who are trying to keep the Enoch calendar pretend they're not following the Gregorian calendar, but they're doing the same thing that the Gregorian calendar does. They're doing 365 days every year, which doesn't make sense. It's not what Enoch said. We do 364 days every year in faithfulness to Enoch. So we see 364, and look, there's 2 extra parts. Let me zoom in. There's 2 extra parts, 2 extra days, but they're incomplete days, so they have to be struck off. Likewise, in the next one, it's struck off. And you keep striking off the extra days until, because we're never supposed to have a 365 day. Enoch wants us to do a 7. He wants the calendar to be divisible by 7. There's evidence in the Dead Sea Scrolls that this is the case. For example, in David's Sabbath songs, he says every year the first Sabbath of the year is always going to be on the 4th day of the month. The only way that can happen is if your year is always divisible by 7. So a 365 day completely contradicts what King David said in his Sabbath songs. Okay, so, and again, that was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I showed that last week. I read through some of those excerpts. King David dates every Sabbath of the year, and he also says he only has 364 offerings, and not 365. So, So we saw this right here, 0.6211 on each side. Then it's 1.2422 on each side. So it keeps increasing. Every year it increases by 0.6211 until it reaches a divisibility by 7. And when does it reach a divisibility by 7? Right here. Now look at this. Look what I've discovered. So it's 5 years, right? Enoch said 5 years, didn't he? He said 5 years. Now, look at the... now what I've discovered is usually it's 5 or 6 years. It's like an average of 5 to 6 years, like 5.5 years. Remember, I said Enoch gives us the center, and then we have to use that as the basis of our counting. But it's not necessarily always the same every year, or every 5 years. Sometimes it might have to be 6 years. And why is that? Because for the same reason that I mentioned of how if there's partial days, you have to strike out the partial days because you can't have a partial day. In the same way, you cannot have a partial year. So the 5 years cycle is corresponding with the moon cycle as well. So let's look at the moon cycle, and we're going to look and see how, in the same way, for 354. See, 384, because remember Enoch said you have to add 30 days every 3 years for the lunar year. He told us to do that. So every 3 years, it's 384 days. And now look, what do we have here? The year is not 354 days exactly. It's actually 354.367 every year. So you in the same way we did right here, how you take the extra day and divide it in 2 and put it on each side, and then strike off. You do that right here. You take the extra time, and you divide it in half and put it on each side, and you strike it off. And then look, after 5 years, you have now 2 extra days. And then again, every 5 years, and then sometimes 6 years, but usually 5. So look at that. It corresponds exactly with the sun section. There's a couple times where it's like 1 year difference, but otherwise it corresponds the same. See, so right here, the cycle of the sun, it ends right here. The moon is right here. But now look, they both end right here, and then the sun ends right here, but the moon is 1 down, just like it was up here. But now what happens? Then it realigns again, right here, and then it realigns here and here. So you see that this cannot be coincidence, how the intercalations are happening at the same time, the same basic time. So I believe that this is confirmation that my interpretation is correct, because it's all lining up. Enoch also mentioned an 8-year cycle, and according to I showed it last week. It's called the octaetris. And what that says is every 8 years, the phase of the moon is going to be the same phase of the same day of the year after 8 years. So there's an 8-year cycle too. So all these cycles is to help us synchronize. So it's an amazing confirmation that what I've shared. Hopefully I explain that well and you guys understand what I'm saying. So now let me see, where shall we go next? Let me hold on. There's people. Okay, no one that's trying to get in. So let me see if there's anything I missed. Let's see. Oh, but something I want to correct from last week's video that I said is right here. See where it says, let me zoom in the footnote, it says manuscripts A and N read 13. Manuscripts part of the beta recension minus N. That means all the manuscripts of beta except manuscript N, they give names for the manuscripts. It's easier to help identify which manuscript they're talking about. And so all manuscripts of the beta group except manuscript N say 14 instead of 13. Now, I correctly said that last time, but what I did not say correctly is earlier the same type of footnote, like right here, A minus T, A minus M. That's actually alpha group of manuscripts. What I said last week was manuscripts A through T. That is wrong. I should not have said that. I should have said manuscripts of the alpha minus T manuscript. Manuscripts of alpha minus the M manuscript. Manuscripts of alpha minus the Q. So you see, that's what I should have said. And then this right here, manuscripts of beta minus manuscript A. So that was my bad from last week. So I was correcting that for anyone who's watching this from last week. Then also I did another error last week where I read through 2nd Enoch. And in 2nd Enoch I mentioned, this is another book by, I believe, which was by Enoch, but it's not as reliably preserved. It also has stuff about the calendar. And in the long version, which is not as reliable, it mentions that the intercalation of the moon is sevenfold. Let me find that actually right now. To show you. See here. 1 second here. Is it gonna find it? I don't know if it's gonna show it in the search, so I'll just have to go to it. Let's see here. Let me just quickly find it. Alright, I think it's down here. No, sorry. It should be up here, I think. Yeah. So right here. It says, and the moon has a sevenfold intercalation in a period of revolution of 19 years. That's in the 2nd Enoch. Now, here's what I figured out, or what I incorrectly said. When it says the moon has a sevenfold intercalation, that was my theory of saying, oh, perhaps that means you were to use the moon to add the week, the 7-day week, to the sun year. But I actually found out that's not correct. What this is actually saying is every 19 years you have to add an extra month for the moon. So I was wrong about that, and I wanted to clarify that. I've often appealed to this verse as support for my interpretation of the 7-day week, the extra 7-day week. I cannot do that anymore because I realize I was incorrect on the reasoning there. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that, because I don't want to lead people astray with false information. Now, we go to the next chapter. We did 75 last week as well. I didn't really go through much of the notes on it. Let me see. All right. So I'll go through that right now. I'm gonna read through it, and then we'll start going through the other chapters. So let's see right here. And leaders of the heads of the thousands, who are placed over the whole creation and over all the stars, have also to do with the 4 intercalary days, being inseparable from their office, according to the reckoning of the year, and these render service on the 4 days which are not reckoned in the reckoning of the year. And owing to them, men go wrong therein, for those luminaries truly render service on the world stations, one in the first portal, one in the third portal of the heaven, one in the fourth portal, and one in the sixth portal. And the exactness of the year is accomplished through its separate 364 stations. What he's basically saying is there's 364 days of the year, and there's a leader over each of the days, a leader of the stars or a leader of the angels over each of the day of the year. But there's 4 days which are outside the days of the year. They're not reckoned in the reckoning of the year, but they are part of the year. They're inseparable from their office according to the reckoning of the year, but they render service on the days which are not part of the months of the year. So it's not part of the reckoning of the year in one sense. But later on, we'll see that Enoch actually does say that it is to be reckoned in the whole year. The whole year, but the months of the year is not to be counted as part of it. So, and then as we saw earlier, what are the 4 days of the year? The season-changing days. It's the winter solstice. That's in the first portal right here, and then the third portal is fall. The fourth portal is spring, and the sixth portal is summer. So actually, it might be that the third portal is spring and the fourth portal is fall. Maybe it's one of those two. Anyways, so that's what he's saying right there. Then he continues and says, "For the signs and the times and the years and the days the angel Uriel showed to me, whom the Lord of glory hath set forever over all the luminaries of the heaven, in the heaven and in the world. They should rule on the face of the heaven, and be seen on the earth, and be rulers for the day and the night, the sun, moon, and stars, and all the ministering creatures which make their revolution, and all the chariots of the heaven. In like manner 12 doors Uriel showed me, open in the circumference of the sun's chariot in the heaven, through which the rays of the sun break forth, and from them is warmth diffused over the earth, when they are opened at their appointed seasons, and for the winds and the spirit of the dew when they are opened, standing open in the heavens at the ends. As for the 12 portals in the heaven at the ends of the earth, out of which go forth the sun, moon, and stars, and all the works of heaven in the east and in the west, there are many windows open to the left and right of them, and one window at its season produces warmth corresponding to those doors from which the stars come forth, according as he commanded them, and wherein they set corresponding to their number. And I saw chariots in the heaven, running in the world, above those portals in which revolve the stars that never set. And one is larger than all the rest, and it is that makes its course through the entire world." Let's see. Some of that information kind of goes over my head, and it's hard to understand. Now we're gonna start from what I said we do this week. We do 76 to 82. We'll try to read those chapters. Let me see. Laureen, would you like to read the chapter, or no?
No, not right now.
Okay, I'll read the chapter then. I always try to give people an opportunity who are here. If they want to read it, they can. They don't have to, though. So, "And at the ends of the earth I saw 12 portals open to all the quarters, from which the winds go forth and blow over." Wait, hold on. Let me open the document here. I'm gonna open this. I didn't complete this diagram, but I've done it enough to
Yes.
Help understand. So this is where Enoch was again, halfway between the equator and the poles. So you got the north here, south, east, and west. So now Enoch's going to tell us something really interesting. He's going to tell us how to tell weather. He's going to tell us about weather.
Okay.
So that kind of it could be very practical use. You know, I mean,
Yeah, especially here in Kansas.
yeah. The so here he says, from which the winds go forth and blow over the earth. 3 of them are open on the face of the heavens. So there's 3 right here. Then he says, and 3 in the west, and 3 on the right of the heaven, that would be the south, and 3 on the left, right here, for the north. So then he says, and the 3 first are those of the east, 3 first, the 3 and 3 are of the north, and 3 after those on the left of the south, and 3 on the west. Through 4 of these come winds of blessing and prosperity, and from those 8 come hurtful winds. When they are sent, they bring destruction on all the earth, and on the water upon it, and on all who dwell thereon, and on everything which is in the water and on the land. I tried to color code it for you guys to help you understand. The green is good, prosperity, blessing, winds. These other portals are not good. If the wind is coming from that direction, it's not a good weather that's coming. So he gave the summary there, and now he goes into detail, and he says, and the first wind from those portals, called the east wind, so the first wind from the east portals comes through the first portal, which is in the east, inclining towards the south. So remember, 3 portals in the east. One of the portals inclines towards the south. That's this one right here. And he says, in that one, from that one comes forth desolation, drought, heat, and destruction. So when it comes to that direction, it's not good.
Absolutely not good.
It's from the south direction, so it's hot. That's why it's heat, drought. You know. Now through the second portal in the middle comes which is fitting, and from it there come rain and fruitfulness and prosperity and dew. So that's a good wind if it comes from that direction. Now, to clarify, right here is where you are again, the horizon. That's where you're in the middle, right here where your head is, and you look east this way, you look north this way, west this way, south there. So it's to give you a guide of where you're standing on the horizon. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're showing here. So, oops. Now let's see here. And through the third portal, which lies toward the north, come cold and drought. So what lies toward the north, that's why I put it as blue. I have it orange here to signify hot, but now I put it as blue to signify cold. So he tells us, if it comes through the north, that direction, it's cold and drought. So it's not good weather, but it's not too bad. And after these come forth the south winds through 3 portals. Through the first portal of them inclining to the east comes forth a hot wind. That's right here. That's what you see. It's red. It's a hot wind. And it's oppressive, a hot wind. Through the middle portal next to it, there come forth fragrant smells and dew and rain and prosperity and health. So it's a good wind from the south. Now, through the third portal lying to the west, because it's lying to the west, comes forth dew and rain. That seems good, but then there's locusts and desolation, so that's not good. And sometimes rain can actually be bad. So this is probably a negative type of rain. It's a torrential rain. It's a negative. Now, after these come, he tells us about the north winds. From the 7th portal in the east come dew and rain, locust and desolation. Now he says 7th portal in the east. I'm not sure if he's saying, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know if he means this one or this one. He says 7th portal in the east, so I assume he must mean this one. But we'll go through and see what he means. So he says, east comes dew and rain, locust and desolation. So again, there's that locust and bad stuff. From the middle portal come in a direct direction health and rain and dew and prosperity. That's good. Through the third portal in the west, inclines to the west, come cloud and hoarfrost and snow and rain and dew and locusts. So that's the negative right there. Then he says, after these 4 are the west winds, and through the first portal adjoining the north, so this is adjoining the north, come forth dew and hoarfrost and cold and snow and frost. And from the middle portal come forth dew and rain and prosperity and blessing. This is a good one. Through the last portal which adjoins the south, so it's connected to the south here, adjacent to it, it comes forth drought and desolation and burning and destruction. He says, and the 12 portals of the 4 quarters of the heaven are therewith completed, and all their laws and all their plagues and all their benefactions have I shown to thee, my son Methuselah. Now, just as I showed earlier how he shows us the center, but it changes depending where you are on Earth. Likewise here. Here's the, hold on. Oh, I wasn't able to complete, I don't think I was able, let me see here. Yeah, so I think what this should be right now, I can complete it as I'm showing you guys. So it should be the, whoops, nope, actually I can't complete it right now. I'll have to do it some other time. So this should be orange. This should be orange. And then the color coded right here, this should be blue. It should be, oh wait, I'm sorry. No. This should be red. Sorry, my apologies. These 2 should be red. And then these 2 should be green. Or, let me see. Yeah, I have to fix that because I did it. I think I did it incorrectly. So I'll try to see. Let me see. Yeah, I think it's slightly off there. But anyway, so you get the basic idea. It starts off the normal quarters, but then it's supposed to get narrower right here. Oh, okay, no, now I see it. My bad. I didn't do it wrong. So I was misunderstanding. Okay. So hold on. So you see right here, let me zoom in. So this is the quarter. This is a quarterway between the equator and the poles. So you've got the portals are the north portals and the south portals are much larger. They're much larger. The east and west portals are narrower. They're right here instead. Then you've got the equator right here. The north portals are the entire thing right here. The south portals are the entire thing right here. That's the equator, and then we go the other direction, right here. So now the east portals are pretty large, and the west as well. The north and south are small portals. That's how it corresponds. And I also show you the southern hemisphere too. Here's the southern hemisphere. Everything's in reverse. It's in the opposite directions. And then finally we show the here's the North Pole and the South Pole. That was harder to do. I'm not sure if I did it correctly, but I know for certain that the portal, one of the portals goes like this, another portal goes like this, and another portal goes like this. Those are the east and western portals. But in regards to the southern portals, I'm not sure if I did it right, but I tried. And then right here, that's the South Pole. There's the northern. Every direction you go is the north, and from here at the North Pole, every direction you go is the south. So that shows you the wind in places of, and I need to fix the diagram. It's not complete. So, anyways, those are the winds. So let's see here. Now you'll see right here. Look, it says it's bolded quarters. Why did he bold it? Because he changed what the text actually says. He says the text wrongly renders as wind. Well, I don't agree when he changes things, so we should keep it what it says. So I saw 12 portals open to all the winds. Is probably what it should say. Let's go to that right now in this other version to confirm, to make sure. I want to confirm that. So let's see, 76 right here. And I saw the 12 wide openings in all directions through which the winds come out and blow over the earth. Let me see what it says here. Okay, to all the quarters. He renders it as directions. Then there's the footnote right here, V. Literally, so he says literally it says to all the winds. So, opening to all the winds through which the winds come out. So, we should probably stick with what the text says and not try to change it like this. This one translator likes to do that a lot, and I don't like that. All right, one second. Yeah? Okay. So then you also see this little bracket, or not bracket, it's a cross thing right here. That means R.S. Charles thinks it's corrupt. But again, we should ignore what he says most of the time. In parentheses, it's words added by the translator, R.S. Charles, because he wanted to clarify what he thinks it's saying. And then brackets, he believes that part should not be part of the original text. Again, that's his opinion. Speculation on his part. So let's see. And then again, down here, 4 quarters. Let's see, for 14. Manuscripts read portals. So it actually says, and the 12 portals of the 4 portals of the heaven are therewith completed. He changed it to say quarters. Let's say what this says. Let's see. Thus the 12 openings of the 4 heavenly directions are completed. Then footnote V. Wait, alright, V right here. So 4, yeah, he has it as openings. In other words, portals. So let's see. Now, and again, these are footnotes he gives. R.S. Charles, he gives those. Let me see. Okay, there's not too much to say here. I mean, like, for example, verse 12, it says, do, some manuscripts add, and rain. So, let's see. Yeah, so that's that chapter. I don't think there's really anything really needed to say for the footnotes. One thing to say, though, is that one of my friends named Sean, he interprets these portals as talking about the months of the year. But it's clear by context that it has nothing to do with the months of the year. So the winds have no correspondence with spring, summer, fall, or winter. It has nothing to do with it. It's talking about weather, and it's entirely unrelated to the calendar. The winds are entirely unrelated. So, you know, this is the calendar, eastern, western, north, and south. So he gives us the horizon measurements for the calendar. He gives the horizon measurements for the weather, and they're not connected. They should not be connected. And now he gives us the horizon measurements for directions in chapter 77. And he tells us. So basically, geography, he's telling us. He says, and the first quarter is called the east because it is the first, and the second the south because the Most High will descend there. Yea, there in quite a special sense will he who is blessed forever descend. And the west quarter is named the diminished because there all the luminaries of the heaven wane and go down. And the fourth quarter, named the north, is divided into 3 parts. The first of them is for the dwelling of men, and the second contains seas of waters, and the abysses and forests and rivers. and darkness and clouds, and the third part contains the garden of righteousness. I saw 7 high mountains, higher than all the mountains which are on the earth, and thence comes forth hoarfrost, and days, seasons, and years pass away. I saw 7 rivers on the on the earth, larger than all the rivers. One of them, coming from the west, pours into waters into the great sea. And these 2 come from the north to the sea and pour their waters into the Erythraean Sea in the east. And the remaining 4 come forth on the side of the north to their own sea, the Erythraean Sea, and 2 into the great sea, and discharge themselves there. And then we have this, and some say into the desert. That's probably a scribe change, a scribal addition, and some say. Then it says, 7 great islands I saw on the sea and in the mainland, 2 in the mainland and 5 in the great sea. So he's clearly giving here some really great information of geography. I was not able to do a diagram for this information, but it's all the same basic idea of, first he gave us the horizon measurements of the calendar, then the horizon measurements of the weather, and now the horizon measurements of geography, telling you in which direction to go to what places. But where Enoch was when he was being shown these things, the second, he says, is, so in the south section of the horizon where he was facing, the Most High would descend there in quite a special sense. Will he who is blessed forever descend? To me, that sounds like a prophecy of the Messiah coming. A very ambiguous prophecy, but I believe when the Messiah comes down, that will be in one sense as the Most High coming down, although the Son of God is not the Most High. But he is the same, I believe he's the same identity as him, but he has left high and has lowered himself. He's no longer Most High. That's my belief anyway. Now we see he bolds quarter again, because again it actually says wind in the text and not quarter, as he changed it. And then also the garden, let me see, some manuscripts say 7, some don't say 7. He supplies this, 2 of them too. That's not actually in the text. And then here another reading says 7 and 2 in the Red Sea. So that adds extra. And then he tells us for footnotes, for the 5 great islands, you can see as a reference Jubilees 8:29, because it says the same thing. So let me see here. So it's very interesting because it tells us an approximation of where the Garden of Eden is, and it also, in the original Hebrew and Aramaic, but I believe it was Hebrew, and the Dead Sea Scroll fragments were found in Aramaic, and this, what I'm about to say, was found in those fragments. You see right here, there's actually a play on words going on in the Hebrew. It's a Hebrew play on words. The first quarter is called the East because of something it does. It's called the South because of something that happens there. The third because, and what happens there in each time in the original Hebrew corresponds with the name, the Hebrew name it gives for the direction. So let me see now. I'm going to read you guys in a little bit the Dead Sea Scroll fragments. But before I do that, I'm going to read some more of the chapters here. Chapter 78. And the names of the sun are the following. The first Oriaris, and the second Tamas. And the moon has 4 names. The first name is Asunya, the second Ebla, the third Banesa, and the fourth Area. These are the 2 great luminaries. So hold on a second. These names are mangled in the manuscripts. Why? Because It was translated from Hebrew probably to Aramaic, and then from Aramaic to Greek, and Greek possibly even to Arabic or Coptic, and then finally to Ethiopian. So along the way, the names can easily get jumbled. For example, we've got Yeshua or some other pronunciation in the Hebrew, and then eventually it becomes Jesus in our language, which is very far removed from the original pronunciation and spelling. So in a similar way, this is what has happened here. Or Yaris may probably be something like light of the earth or something. I don't know. It's unclear what this is. So that there's different theories what this Hebrew word right here for the name of the sun. The second name for the sun is Tamas, which is pretty sure to be Shemesh. The Hebrew name Shemesh most likely is what this is right here, because sometimes the Hebrew speakers, the Jews, pronounce sh as a t, or the shin they pronounce as a t for some reason sometimes. And the moon has 4 names. Asonia, I don't know what that is. Ebla, again, not sure. Vanessa, don't know. But Aria seems pretty clear to be Yariak. That seems what it is. And that's the name of the moon in Hebrew. These other ones, unclear to me. I need to study that more. Now, he says, these are the 2 great luminaries. Their circumference is like the circumference of the heaven, and the size of the circumference of both is alike. In the circumference of the sun there are 7 portions of light, which are added to it more than to the moon. And in definite measures it is transferred till the 7th portion of the sun is exhausted. He's telling us right here that the light of the moon comes from the sun. That's an important knowledge right there. Then he says, and they set and enter the portals of the west, and make their revolution in the north, and come forth through the eastern portals on the face of the heaven. And when the moon rises 1/14th part, appears in the heaven, the light becomes full in her, and on the 14th day she accomplishes her light. And 15 parts of light are transferred to her till the 15th day her light is accomplished, according to the sign of the year. And she becomes 15 parts, and the moon grows by 14th parts. And in her waning she decreases on the first day to 14 parts of her light, on the second to 13 parts of light, on the third to 12, on the fourth to 11, on the fifth to 10, on the sixth to 9, on the 7th to 8, on the 8th to 7, on the 9th to 6, on the 10th to 5, on the 11th to 4, on the 12th to 3, on the 13th to 2, on the 14th to the half of the 7th, and all her remaining light disappears wholly on the 15th. And in certain months, the month has 29 days, and once 28. And Uriel showed me another law, when light is transferred to the moon, and on which side it is transferred to her by the sun. During all the period during which the moon is growing in her light, she is transferring it to herself when opposite to the sun. During 14 days, her light is accomplished in the heaven, and when she is illumined throughout, her light is accomplished full in the heaven. And on the first day she is called a new moon. So right there he's telling us the first day of the lunar month is a new moon. For on that day the light rises upon her. She becomes full moon exactly on the day when the sun sets in the west, and from the east she rises at night, and the moon shines the whole night through till the sun rises over against her, and the moon is seen over against the sun. On the side whence the light of the moon comes forth, there again she wanes till all the light vanishes, and all the days of the month are at an end, and her circumference is empty, void of light. And 3 months she makes of 30 days, and at her time she makes 3 months of 29 days each, in which she accomplishes her waning in the first period of time, and in the first portal for 177 days. And in the time of her going out she appears for 3 months, 30 days each, and for 3 months she appears 29 each. At night she appears like a man for 20 days each time, and by day she appears like the heaven, and there is nothing else in her save her light. What does it mean she appears like a man? Probably when people say like, it looks like there's a man in the moon or something. You know, you've heard that expression. Perhaps that's what Enoch is talking about. So Enoch said the lunar year for the months, lunar months are 30 days sometimes, 29 days sometimes, and on rare occasions 28. Now, let me see. Any important footnotes here? Nothing major. Okay, and then here's something interesting. Like a man. It says, hence perhaps the name Ausonia, which would be as, which would be like man, ish, and then onia. I don't know what that would be. I guess appearance or something. So that was chapter 78. 79 is pretty short, and it's, and now, my son, I have shown thee everything, and the law of all the stars of the heaven is completed. And he showed me all the laws of these for every day, and for every season of bearing rule, and for every year, and for its going forth, and for the order prescribed to it every month and every week, and the waning of the moon, which takes place in the sixth portal. For in this sixth portal her light is accomplished, and after that there is the beginning of the waning, which takes place in the first portal in its season till 177 days are accomplished. 177 times 2, that's 100. Actually, that's 354, which, as we said before, is how many days there are in a lunar year. So till 177 days are accomplished, reckoned according to weeks, 25 and 2 days. She falls behind the sun in the order of the stars exactly 5 days in the course of one period. And when this place which thou seest has been traversed, such is the picture and sketch of every luminary which Uriel the archangel, who was their leader, showed unto me. And then 80. Now, that a lot of what I just showed is the calendar. Lengthy information of the calendar. It's hard for people to follow sometimes. But now this is a little bit better because it gives us moral doctrine and prophecy. So now it says, and in those days the angel Uriel answered and said to me, behold, I have shown thee everything, Enoch, and I have revealed everything to thee, that thou shouldst see this sun and this moon and the leaders of the stars of the heaven, and all those who turn them, their tasks and times and departures. And in the days of the sinners the years shall be shortened, and their seed shall be tardy on their lands and fields, and all things on the earth shall alter, and shall not appear in their time. And the rain shall be kept back, and the heaven shall withhold. And in those times the fruits of the earth shall be backward, and shall not grow in their time. And the fruits of the trees shall be withheld in their time. And the moon shall alter her order, and not appear at her time. It shouldn't say sun right here. He bolded it again. So what does it actually say? It says the heaven, not sun. So, and in those days the heaven shall be seen. And let me see. And then what does he have? He has it as, and he shall journey in the evening, but the text actually says, and hunger shall come. So instead, and hunger shall come. So it should say, and in those days the heaven shall be seen, and hunger shall come on the extremity of the great chariot in the west. But, it's always possible that R.H. Charles sometimes has good corrections on a couple occasions. But so he renders it as the sun shall journey in the evening on the extremity of the great chariot in the west. And then continue. And shall shine more brightly than accords with the order of light. And many chiefs of the stars shall transgress the order. And these shall alter their orbits and tasks, and not appear at their seasons prescribed to them. And the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from the sinners. And the thoughts of those on the earth shall err concerning them, and they shall be altered from all their ways. Yea, they shall err and take them to be gods. And evil shall be multiplied upon them, and punishment shall come upon them, so as to destroy all. This prophecy has not happened yet. Basically, in the future, the days are going to be shortened, as the Messiah foretold. The days will be shortened. And what's going to happen is, instead of 24 hours for each day, it's going to be much shorter for each day. And the moon's going to alter its order. and not appear in her time that she's supposed to. And the sun, I mean, the stars are going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. And people, when they see this, they're going to think that these stars are gods and start worshiping them. This is going to happen sometime, and that'll be a sad day when that happens. But so we see in Enoch also earlier that stars are given commandments, and if stars disobey their orders, they will be punished for that, and it's considered a sin by the stars. And people have a lot of hard time with that concept, but it's taught in the scriptures that not just humans are able to sin, but angels and other beings of creation too. If you read Psalm 148, it goes through all of creation and says, this part of creation, praise Yahuwah, praise God. It's commanding creation to praise God. Trees, animals, stars, everything is supposed to praise God. So it implies that they are alive and can worship God and also can refuse to worship God. So there's that dynamic there that Scripture teaches us, which a lot of people have a hard time accepting. The Messiah, when he did the miracle of the winds where he calmed the storm down. Well, what does it say? It says he commanded the winds to stop. He commanded them, and they obeyed. So that's a language which implies that they are alive and able to obey or disobey the commands. And they obeyed. The winds obeyed. And Jubilees, for example, says that there's spirits, angels over each thing of creation. Like there's angels of fire, angels of water, angels of snow, different things like that. So there doesn't seem to me to be an issue of these things being alive, because we are just dust ourselves. We're just dust. He can surely make dust alive. He can make a donkey talk. He can make stars alive if he wants to. It says he can take the rocks and raise sons of Abraham from the rocks, the New Testament says. So I don't see it to be too much of an issue that plants can be alive, animals, stars. So Enoch tells us that stars are alive and they're able to sin, obey or disobey, or be righteous. Now, and I believe that. I have faith that that is true. And the ancients believe that as well. But a lot of people don't realize that. So when they see stars going their own way, they're going to think they're gods. A lot of people, like Hindus and other pagans, will probably start worshiping the stars, and they will sin in that way. Now let's see here. Let's see how the Charlesworth renders it. He says, in those days it will appear in the sky, and it shall arrive in the evening in the extreme ends of the great lunar path in the west. Now looking at the footnotes, Q, R, and S. Let's see what that is. He suggests the sun instead of the sky. But it says, in those days it'll appear in the sky. Okay. R is evening. Text reads drought and famine. He says, Charles, following Halevi, has suggested perhaps that it should read hunger. But they decide to render it as evening, following Charles. And then S, lunar path. Let's see why he has that. Chariot. Not lunar path. Why would he translate it as? That's a really bad translation. Translating it as lunar path when it just says chariot. So some of these translators are not always faithful to what the text says. So there's only 82. We're going to 82. So there's 81 and 82. If you guys are able to stay for the rest of that, then and then we'll finish with there. So 81. He said unto me, observe, Enoch, these heavenly tablets, and read what is written thereon. and mark every individual fact. And I observed the heavenly tablets, and read everything which was written, and understood everything, and read the book of all the deeds of mankind, and of all the children of flesh that shall be upon the earth, to the remotest generations. And forthwith I blessed the great Lord, the King of glory, forever, in that he has made all the works of the world. And I extolled the Lord because of his patience, and blessed him because of the children of men. And after that I said, Blessed is the man who dies in righteousness and goodness, concerning whom there is no book of unrighteousness written, and against whom no day of judgment shall be found. And those 7 holy ones brought me and placed me on the earth before the door of my house, and said to me, Declare everything to thy son Methuselah, and show to all thy children that no flesh is righteous in the sight of the Lord, for he is their creator. 1 year we will leave thee with thy son, till thou givest thy commands, that thou mayest teach thy children and record for them, and testify to all thy children. And in the 2nd year they shall take thee from their midst. Let thy heart be strong, for the good shall announce righteousness to the good. The righteous with the righteous shall rejoice, and shall offer congratulation to one another. But the sinners shall die with the sinners, and the apostate go down with the apostate. And those who practice righteousness shall die on account of the deeds of men, and be taken away on account of the doings of the godless. And in those days they ceased to speak to me, and I came to my people, blessing the Lord of the world. So this is very cool information, because Enoch's telling us how the 7 archangels told him, okay, now go to Methuselah your son, you have 1 year left before you're taken away. So this was in the year 365 of Enoch's life, before he was translated. And so he was told, okay, you're going to be given 1 year with your family to say your goodbyes and to settle your affairs and to give them these books that you have written and the prophecies that we have shown you. And it's very wonderful information about what he says about the righteous and the good. The righteous with the righteous shall rejoice. He says, where does he say? He says, no flesh is righteous in the sight of the Lord. Then he says, the righteous with the righteous shall rejoice. So is that a contradiction? No, sometimes the scriptures speak in a different meaning. Humans and flesh can be righteous. But kind of like Paul, you know what Paul says? He says, he talks about the flesh, makes a distinction between works of the flesh and works of the spirit. And he equates works of the flesh with sin. So the flesh is sinful, according to what Paul says, and it seems what Enoch and other passages of Scripture are saying, that it's sinful in his sight, but following the Spirit, that's righteous in his sight. So you follow the Spirit of righteousness, and you'll be righteous. But if you follow your flesh, there's no righteousness in the flesh in his sight. And he says, blessed is the man who dies in righteousness and goodness, because he won't be condemned. Which implies that if you die in unrighteousness and badness, if you die in sin, there will be a book of unrighteousness written against you. And there will be a day of judgment in which you will be judged and punished for your sins. So in your lifetime, you want to try to die in righteousness, in faithfulness. Otherwise, you will have a bad time on Judgment Day. And then also he tells us the fate of the sinners and apostates. They'll die and condemnation. But here, those who practice righteousness shall die on account of the deeds of men, and be taken away on account of the doings of the godless. So he's prophesying to us that the righteous will be martyred and killed for righteousness by evil men sometimes. And we see that happen so many times. Now let me see if there's any footnotes here before I go to the last chapter. Any further footnotes to read? Let's see. Right. Here's the interesting one. Children of men in these manuscripts. Children of the world in these manuscripts. Then we've got Day of Judgment right here in these manuscripts, G, M, and U. Unrighteousness in these manuscripts. Unrighteousness seems to be a better reading because Day of Judgment doesn't make sense. According to Scripture, there is a Day of Judgment for all people. There is a Day of Judgment for all people. So, it says right here, against whom no unrighteousness shall be found. That's a very important difference. It says in most manuscripts, against whom no unrighteousness shall be found. But they say against whom no day of judgment because of a few manuscripts that say that. That sounds very, very wrong. And it seems like they changed it from unrighteousness to day of judgment because some scribes might have thought that, no, sometimes the saved people might still be unrighteous. There's a teaching that says if you're saved, even if you're unrighteous, you don't lose your salvation. A lot of people like to teach that sometimes. I don't believe the scriptures support that. So it's easy to see why a scribe might change unrighteousness to day of judgment because they thought, well, no, you're not going to be. That's a Christian doctrine some people teach of that there's going to be no day of judgment for the righteous. They teach after you die, you go to heaven right away. So why would there be a day of judgment if you're already in heaven? That's what a lot of Christians believe. But the fact is, when you die, you don't go straight to the eternal kingdom. You have to wait until day of judgment. And then after that, if you're approved, then you get into the eternal kingdom. So Charles Worth says, blessed is the man who dies righteous and upright, against whom no record of oppression has been written, and who received no judgment on that day. H, footnote H, upon whom no guile has been found. Manuscript C, or B, I mean, D, who did not find the day of judgment. Yeah, so I go with the unrighteous reading. Now, and then look right here, no flesh is righteous. And then it says, for this language, R.H. Charles says, see Job 9:2 and Psalm 14:1. Then he says, all right, verse 6, in alpha manuscripts it says thy son, beta manuscripts it says thy sons. So 6, 1 year we will leave thee with thy son. Some manuscripts say sons. Then, let's see.
Gehenna.
Yeah, and this is a footnote. Go down, verse 8. So, right here, the apostates go down with the apostate. Where do they go down to? R.H. Charles says, when it says go down, he thinks it means into Gehenna, or the place of torment. Lord of the world. Some manuscripts say eternal Lord. Others say Lord of the ages. All the same basic meaning. Okay, so that's that, and then now we'll read the chapter 82. And now, my son Methuselah, all these things I am recounting to thee, and writing down for thee. And I have revealed to thee everything, and given thee books concerning all these. So preserve, my son Methuselah, the books from thy father's hand, and that thou deliverest them to the generations of the world. I have given wisdom to thee and to thy children, and thy children that shall be to thee, that they may give it to their children for generations. This wisdom that passeth their thought. And those who understand it shall not sleep, but shall listen with the ear, that they may learn this wisdom. And it shall please those that eat thereof better than good food. Blessed are all the righteous, blessed are all those who walk in the way of righteousness, and sin not as the sinners, in the reckoning of all their days in which the sun traverses the heaven, entering into and departing from the portals for 30 days with the heads of thousands of the order of the stars, together with the 4 which are intercalated, which divide the 4 portions of the year, which lead them and enter with them 4 days. So look at this for a second. He says, he clearly is connecting those who don't follow the solar calendar who don't do the 364 days, he says they are sinning as the sinners because they're not following the proper reckoning. So he says, blessed are those who walk in the way of righteousness and do not sin as the sinners in their reckoning of all their days. So which calendar you follow is an indication of whether you're doing a righteousness or a wickedness. If you don't follow a proper calendar, that's a sin. As the Torah says, if you don't keep the days on the correct days of the year, the holy days on the right time of the year, you have to be cut off from Israel. If you don't keep Passover, you get cut off. If you don't do Day of Atonement, you get cut off. Well, you don't get to keep Day of Atonement whenever you think it is. You're supposed to do the Day of Atonement on the correct day. And if you don't do it on the correct day, you get cut off, according to the law. So we see Enoch confirms that, if you don't keep the calendar properly, you're sinning. And he tells us if you don't keep the solar calendar of 364 days properly, if you keep the lunar instead, or if you don't do the 364 properly, then you're sinning. So he says, owing to the 4 extra days which are added to the year, so there's 360 days plus 4 extra days, owing to those days men shall be at fault, and not reckon them. He renders it as in the whole reckoning of the year. He doesn't actually say that. Again, he bolded it. So let's see what it says. In the reckoning of the whole world. So it says in the reckoning of the whole world. And not reckon them in the reckoning of the whole world. And then that's an interesting difference because earlier he said they should not be reckoned as part of the year. And now he's saying and not reckon them in the whole reckoning of the year. Well, no, Enoch earlier said they should not be reckoned in the reckoning of the year. But now it actually says the whole reckoning, or what did it say? It said in the reckoning of the whole world. And he says, yea, men shall be at fault and not recognize them accurately, for they belong to the reckoning of the year and are truly recorded forever. One in the first portal, and one in the third, and one in the fourth, and one in the sixth, and the year is completed in 364 days. And he's saying, some people say this is not accurate. They say 364 is not accurate. No, he says, and the account thereof is accurate, and the recorded reckoning thereof exact. For the luminaries and months and festivals and years and days has Uriel shown and revealed to me, to whom the Lord of the whole creation of the world hath subjected the host of heaven. Let's see what that says. To whom and subjected. In verse 7. It actually says, whom he hath commanded for me. So it should say, shown and revealed to me, whom he hath commanded to me, the host of heaven. And he has power. I'm going to have to read that in Charlesworth to see what it says. And he has power over night and day in the heaven to cause the light to give light to men, sun, moon, and stars, and all the powers of the heaven, which revolve in their circular chariots. And these are the orders of the stars which set in their places and in their seasons and festivals and months. Let me quickly look at that right now. 7. So 82, 7, right here. Whom the Lord of all creation of the world has ordered for me. There, that's how it should say it. Not to whom the Lord of the whole creation of the world hath subjected. Not that. That's in error. R.H. Charles changed it because he wanted it to say that. Now the problem is most people's translations are R.H. Charles' version or based on it, which is not good because he's changing things. So it's better, in my opinion, if you get a new translation that's not R.H. Charles, unless you get his official version with all the footnotes in it. You don't want a version of R.H. Charles which does not have his footnotes. Now we see in verse 10, and these are the names of those who lead them, who watch that they enter at their times, in their orders, in their seasons, in their months, in their periods of dominion, and in their positions. That they, verse 10. Who watch that they enter. Manuscripts read, who watch and they enter. So, these are the names of those who lead them, who watch and they enter at their times. That's how it should read. Now, there are 4 leaders who divide the 4 parts of the year, enter first. and after them the 12 leaders of the orders who divide the months. And for the 360 there are heads over thousands who divide the days. And for the 4 intercalary days there are the leaders which sunder the 4 parts of the year. And these heads over thousands are intercalated between leader and leader, each behind a station, but their leaders make a division. And these are the names of the leaders who divide the 4 parts of the year, which are ordained. So not only are there stars and so it's either stars and angels, or so these are actually, they're either angels appointed over these stars, or they are stars being given names, and they're considered alive. So in either case, so let's see. These are the names of them, of the 4: Milkiel, Hel-Emelech, and Melial, and Narel. And the names of those who lead them: Adnarel and Iyasu Sael and Elomiel. These 3 follow the leaders of the orders, and there is one that follows 3 leaders of the orders, which follow those leaders of stations that divide the 4 parts of the year. So it seems, if I understand correctly, what it's saying is there's 4 seasons, so there's 4 angels or 4 stars. These are the names. Then there's 3 months, and it's given these names. And it goes through these 3 months are headed by these ones, if I understand correctly. So the 4 seasons, each season has 3 months. So these guys keep doing their job every season, if I understand properly. Now, in the beginning of the year, Melchiel rises first and rules, who was named Temeni and son, and all the days of his dominion whilst he bears rule are 91 days. So just so you know, these names, as I said, they're from the original Hebrew, but they've got mangled over time, so they're hard to understand due to how many languages they've gone through. Then it says, and these are the signs of the days which are to be seen on earth in the days of his dominion. This is the spring season, okay? Sweat and heat and calms, and all the trees bear fruit, and leaves are produced on all the trees, and the harvest of wheat, and the rose flowers, and all the flowers which come forth in the field. Then it says, but the trees of the winter season become withered. And these are the names of the leaders which are under them: Berkael, Zelebsel, and another who is added a head of 1,000, called Heluyaseph. The days of the dominion of this are at an end. So that's those are the 3 months of spring, actually, right there. Helu Yasef, I don't know what Helu means, but Yasef I'm pretty sure means addition or adding from the Hebrew. Now let's see. The next leader after him is Hel-Emelech, whom one names the shining sun, and all the days of his light are 91 days. That's the summer. And these are the signs of days on the earth: glowing heat and dryness, and the trees ripen their fruits and produce all their fruits ripe and ready, and the sheep pair and become pregnant, and all the fruits of the earth are gathered in, and everything that is in the fields and the winepress. These things take place in the days of his dominion. These are the names and the orders and the leaders of those heads of thousands: Gideel, Kael, and Hael, and the name of the head of 1,000 which is added to them, Asphael. The days of his dominion are at an end. So it's hard to understand some of this information here because it seems like something has been chipped, removed, and the Dead Sea Scrolls testify to this. It suggests there's a longer version of the Dead Sea Scrolls that was found. So we've got the four different names for the seasons. We see here, but he only goes through 2 of those seasons. He does not go through fall or winter. He doesn't give us that. Then he gives us these 3 names: Adnarel, Iasusael, and Elomiel. these, I'm not sure who these are. These might be fall or winter. So it seems like there's definitely something missing here from the scribes. And that finishes the chapter of Enoch. Let me see any footnotes, and then I can have you guys ask questions if you want, and then we'll end it. Let's see here. To thee and to thy children are these manuscripts MQU, but beta manuscripts say to thy son. Let's see. Hold on. 2. Let me go to verse 2. And now my son Methuselah, in verse 2, and thy children. So, as he says, here the footnote, he says, since it talks about his children, Methuselah's children, Enoch's mentioning Methuselah's children, that means Lamech is already born, which shows that the Septuagint chronology is wrong in Septuagint manuscripts, Greek manuscripts of the Genesis, and either Samaritan or Masoretic is correct. Now let's see here. Anything else? Okay, so it says 360 days, but these manuscripts say 364 days. So that's an interesting difference as well. And then he says Milkiel is an inversion of Helamelech. Let's see right here. Milkiel, Helamelech. I don't see evidence for why he says it's an inversion. Let's see. He says verse 14 is not clear to him. Yeah, that's right. Verse 14, the 3, as I said, the 3 is unclear. But it could be from the fall or winter, the missing section. Okay, he says he is named the southern sun. So it should, Tamaini and sun should be read together. Sun, Timini, which is south, I guess. Tamain is south in Hebrew. So right here, was named southern sun. And verse 15, of the year, where is it? In the beginning of the year. The words of the year are not in some manuscripts. See right here. They're removed from alpha manuscripts, except M. M and beta manuscripts have of the year. Let's see. Any other things? Yeah, he says, there is no account of the remaining 6 months. The redactor may have omitted them. And that is correct. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and it's only fragmentary, but a fuller account of the remaining 6 months is in that version. So anyways, that's the chapters. That's Enoch. Do you guys have any questions? And then also, we can end it basically about here, or if you want, I can read some of the fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but I already read some of those in last week's teaching, so if you want, you can just read those, or listen to those from last week's teaching. But so yeah, any final questions do you guys have, or are you guys good for this week?
I'm good for this week.
Okay. All right. I have Facebook, so you can message me on Facebook as well for any other questions. And I hope you enjoyed this study. We're going to be trying to continue Enoch. I've been doing studies about once a week. I'm thinking I might start doing it once every other week. It's kind of getting a little bit overwhelming for me to do it once a week. So 2 weeks from now, I'll continue the Enoch, and we're going to go to the parables section. We're going to start studying through the parables. We've already done chapters 1 through 36 of Enoch, and we've done now chapter 72 through 82. So now we're going to backtrack and go to the parables probably. We'll decide. I'll decide which next section of Enoch, and then so yeah, hope you guys will continue our studies, and I have many other teachings on my YouTube channel and other resources as well. So just message me if you're interested in any of that other stuff. All right. Thank you so much for being with me here this week, and hope you guys will participate in the next study. Shalom.
Okay.
And God bless you guys.
Shalom.